We're going to get into our second segment of the night, and that is week 2 position grades. We're going to just kind of run through this just like last week, give you our grading scale. If you remember, Alan's a tough grader, and Morgan, I'm more of an easy A. So if your GPA is struggling, you want to come to my class. All right, just giving you that heads up. But I'm going to start us out with the quarterback. I gave Trevor Lawrence last week a C. Even though I know I just said I'm kind of a lenient grader, I did grade Trevor Lawrence a C because I expect more out of him than what he did in the 2 interceptions and kind of a low passing game against Georgia Tech. But he rebounded. He found Justin Ross. He did have 1 interception, so I give him a B instead of an A, but he was able to connect with a lot of players, a lot of tight ends, a lot of slot guys, especially Justin Ross. So I'm excited to see him slowly improve from now a C to a B grade point. What you got for the QB position?
I gave him a B plus. Like you said, he had the pick. He had the few underthrows that kind of bothered me a little bit, but I had to give him the plus simply based off that throw to Ross alone. Like you said, rolling to the bad side of the field, as they like to call it. Throwing across his body. It's amazing with the talent that he has. That when he rolls over, that way, and he sees all these defenders coming at him, and Ross leaking behind the defense, he's got to be giggling inside because he knows he's going to make that touchdown pass. And I gave him the plus based on that alone. So B plus, not too bad.
Now, I want to stop because you're talking about giggling inside. I put this on Twitter at Clemson Morgan. Go follow us over there, Clemson Allen, Clemson Morgan on Twitter. But I put this on Twitter during the game. Don't you think Brent Venables giggles inside when he knows that he's just called a blitz between XT and AJ? I mean, if I had just called that play, I'm thinking to myself, this is about to get nasty right now. And so I just wonder what goes through his mind and what if he's. I would love to see the camera go to him on one of those plays just to see what he's doing, because I'd be kind of giggling knowing that quarterback's about to get destroyed, which he did. But running over to running backs, I gave the running back position a B because at first it was kind of around a C, maybe even a D. Travis was really not getting anything going. But the fact that Lynn J. Dixon stepped up, showed he's a good number 2, and the fact that Travis Etienne was catching balls out of the backfield, which is what he said he was working on this year, and he did really well at it and was able to spark some scoring drives. I gave him a B.
Yeah, simply so we don't, repeat each other too much and sound like we got an echo in the building. I gave him a B for the exact same reasons you did. I mean, it was just you're exactly right. You said everything I was going to say, so I don't want to repeat it. It's very eloquent as usual, I'm sure. But
so no, you go ahead. I got the wide receivers because they improved so much since last game. I gave them an A. Ross, Higgins, Etienne. I kind of counted him as the wide receiver. But Higgins, man, he is just so consistent. He's there when you need him. He's kind of like a DeAndre Hopkins or Hunter Renfrow. He's just there when you need him. And let Justin Ross get those big time catches, but T. Higgins got some big time catches too. And he really kind of because he was catching the ball while Ross was dropping balls, it kind of got that offense rolling too early in the game.
Yeah, I gave him a B plus. They did a solid job overall. It wasn't too bad, like you said. I'm giving them. I'm a little bit hard on him again because Ross had those 2 drops for sure. So I'm penalizing him for that. It's just like you did Trevor Lawrence with a C, last game, because we expect more from them. But T. Higgins, goodness gracious. Okay, that catch near the end zone, I really thought he was going to find a way to sneak in somehow. That was like a Hunter Renfrow type catch. Okay, that's exactly what it looked like. Some crazy, I'm going to throw my body out this way and just going to happen to end up in my hands. T. Higgins is showing why he's going to be a very high draft pick at the end of the year.
Yeah, I love T, and I think he's just so good for the team, so consistent, just reliable. For the tight ends, I actually gave him a B. I felt like Chalk had 2 pretty good catches. Luke Price was a key blocker on Trevor Lawrence touchdown at the goal line early in the game, so I gave him a B.
I actually gave him a B minus. They did okay. They had a catch on the first play of the game. They threw to him on the first play. Chalk had a couple of catches, but nothing major. I've noticed a couple of missed blocks. So they did all right, but a lot to improve upon. We knew was going to kind of be a battle this whole season anyways. So hopefully they can get a little better, at least get their blocking assignments down, and hopefully become a bigger threat in the passing game, but we'll kind of see how it goes.
What you got for the offensive line?
Offensive line. I gave the offensive line a B. I thought they did a pretty good job. Obviously, you kind of highlight the struggles in the running game with Etienne, so it kind of makes you want them to grade lower. But again, I think that kind of makes the perception of them a little worse than they actually did. They did a pretty good job protecting Trevor. They opened up some holes for Etienne. Maybe he was just able, or for Lynn J. Dixon, maybe he was able to find him a little better than Etienne was. So I'm giving the offensive line a B. Pretty solid job from them this weekend.
Some people were saying that Lin J was able to find him because he's quicker than Travis. I think that is just way too assumptive of that game. I think it was just
Yeah,
somebody had the momentum going for him. Somebody had a good game. Somebody didn't. Right.
sure.
I think also the defense had played more involved in that as well, because when Travis was out there, they focused on him a little bit more.
Yeah,
I'm not already going to say that Lin J is quicker than Travis. I don't believe that at all. They're definitely similar, but they have some differences. And I think, you can't really complain about him being able to pick up the slack. I'm glad that he did. I gave a
yeah.
B to the offensive line. I think they did really well with the running game, and being able to kind of work through that. And so I enjoyed that as well. And also they kind of protect Trevor. He did get 2 sacks, but you know what? One of those sacks that ESPN gave him,
Yeah,
one of those sacks was him getting stepped on by Jackson Carman.
yeah,
And I'm like, you can't call that a sack. It's no
yeah,
different than taking a knee. He fell down on his knee and a player crushed his ankle. I mean,
yeah.
why are you going to then give that to the defensive lineman? I don't get that at all. But supposedly he got sacked twice. According to what I think, he only got sacked once. So moving over to the defense, what'd you give the defensive line last weekend?
Before I roll to that, actually, if you don't mind, I know we do a lot of agreeing here on this show, but I am going to disagree with you. I think I'm not saying that the fans are right in this particular case. I do think Lynn J. Dixon is a little bit quicker than Travis Etienne, especially out of his breaks and making his cuts and seeing the holes. I do think he's a little bit quicker, which is hard to say because Etienne does a great job. Etienne hits the hole really hard. And he gets there fast, but I think as far as being quick and shifty, yeah, I'll definitely give the nod to the audience there. I do think he's a little bit quicker there. On the defense, I did grade the defensive line just for you this time. Okay, defensive tackles and defensive ends I hadn't out last time. Great unit this time. I gave them a B plus. It's really hard to judge them in this game. Obviously with the Russian 3, did they do their job? It looks like it. They didn't get any pressure, but they kept them in the pocket, which I think was the game plan all along. When they're running the 3-3-5, so a lot of them getting double teamed when it's 3-on-5. You know how that works. So it's just kind of is what it is. But I gave him a B plus, so it's just hard to grade that one.
I don't like your B pluses and B minuses, and I definitely don't like you disagreeing with the show host.
That's right.
We talked about this last night. We talked about this. I gave the defensive line an A. I felt like anybody with 3 linemen holding a team for 53 rushing yards has got to get an A. I know that there was a lot involved with that, but the fact that they're coming out in 3-3-5, 3-2-6s, dime and nickel formations, and holding a team to 53 rushing yards. I said that I didn't really enjoy their rushing game when I watched the Texas State game, so I kind of knew that Texas A&M's pro-style rushing attack was going to fall flat. But 53 yards is really flat. I didn't expect that, so I was giving them an A. For linebackers, I gave linebackers a B. I felt like, you lost Simmons because you swapped with Wallace. Chad Smith did really well.
Yep.
So, I mean, I could have easily given him an A, I think, but I think with Skalski kind of, I don't know about him and his tackling yet, but I do feel like Chad Smith was consistent again. Wallace was really good, and Simmons when they swapped back and forth.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I gave him a B as well. I liked what I saw from Chad Smith. He was very active, getting in on a lot of tackles, like you said. I believe he was the second leading tackler on the day. I believe you mentioned that earlier in the show. The Kayvon Wallace, I love him when they bring Kayvon Wallace on a blitz and stuff. This guy, he wants to hit, and he wants to hit hard. He's a lot like Isaiah Simmons in that respect. Not quite the length, obviously, but he still does a great job. I love seeing him in that role. But again, same thing, Skalski with a couple of missed tackles and that kind of stuff. So I gave him a B, but not too bad for the linebackers anyways.
For the cornerbacks, I was excited to see Mario Goodrich play some more downs, play some more snaps. I felt like DK held his own, and Nolan's his safety, so we won't count him yet. But I felt like DK held his own, considering this is gonna be kind of what happens this year. Is they're gonna pick on him instead of AJ, and the fact that you got AJ out there and they don't pick on him was really big. The fact that you could blitz with AJ was really big as well. So I actually gave the cornerbacks an A.
I give the cornerbacks an A as well. Kendrick and Terrell both pretty active. Like you said, they don't tend to target Terrell as much because they know what he's got. He's kind of the Mullen of last year. It seems like, they gave up a few long third downs like I was talking about. But again, when you're rushing 3, they got all day. I don't care how good your corners are; they're going to be open. But yeah, I think the cornerbacks had a great day overall.
And I followed it up to finish it out with the safeties. I actually gave the safeties an A as well. Tanner Muse stopped a touchdown by getting a interception with Kayvon Wallace blitzing in and disrupting it. Isaiah Simmons being able to go back and play deep center field was really, interesting and exciting to see. Nolan Turner, who missed a tackle early on, then turned things around and forced a fumble, had a tackle for a loss as well. I'm really excited about that secondary. I think they're one of the best in the nation, and so they did a really good job. Even though they did have a lot of passing yards on them, but they kept them outside of that end zone, and I'm giving them both an A.
And I gave them an A minus. We're pretty close there. Like you said, they had a few passing yards they gave up. They had the bust earlier in the game that could have been a touchdown. And obviously the Nolan Turner missed tackle. Nolan Turner, I love Nolan Turner. Like you said, the Hunter Renfro of Clemson now. On defense. I expect him to make every play, and obviously they made him look pretty bad on that one, but he made up for it later in the game. But overall, great effort by the safeties. A minus is pretty solid.